Hello and welcome back to the alcohol-free revolution. It's great to have you back. I am joined here by my glamorous co-host, James Lloyd, and it's fantastic to be back. James, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. I've not had a great day because I got a £600 fine today for having an uncopyrighted image on my website. So, yeah, I'm licking my wounds a little bit about that, Steve.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not you, these things happen, eh? We still, here we are, right, coming on the pod week in, week out, hopefully, and talking about the joys of alcohol-free life. But we have to always remember that these things come along, and it's not always perfect, and life's still there to test us. But at least you probably didn't head down the pub to drown your sorrows when that happened. But it's great to be back, and we're going to venture into our next episode, and very excited to talk about a bit of a sticky subject and something that certainly comes up a lot for me when I'm coaching with my clients, and I'm sure possibly for yourself, and that's the subject that kind of centers around moderation versus taking a break, whether that be for a short period of time or a little longer, or for yourself and myself for indefinitely, really. But yeah, I mean, it's always a bit of a debate with this, and I think it's a really personal thing for people, because there's so many questions that come up when we question around whether to take a break or longer than that. I mean, where do you sit on this, James, and where does your story kind of fit into this?
I think moderation is a huge topic, and I've kind of written down in my notes here that you can look at it. You can call it three different things. I think you can call it moderation, you can call it willpower, or you can call it control. They're all pretty much the same thing, and certainly my experience with it is very similar to many other people, and that is that I tried to moderate alcohol for years, and it always ended in frustration, and it was always the same patterns happening year in, year out. And I know you'll be familiar with this, but it's that story of telling yourself, right, okay, deciding in your own head what your rules are and what your boundaries are. So that might be, all right, I'm only going to drink at the weekends. And maybe you'll do that for a few weeks and everything will be fine. And then something will come up on a Friday night. There'll be an event on a Friday night, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, but I've got to go to that, and I'm gonna drink for that." And then that a few weeks goes by like that, and then something happens on a Thursday, and gradually those boundaries just get eroded, and that sort of leads to this sense of, oh, why can't I stick to what I said I would do? Because you go out on that Thursday night, maybe it's a work event. It tends to be work events a lot with me when I'd be out in London, and you go out and you get hammered. And then on the Friday, you'd have the hangover, you'd feel like shit, and then you'd just be beating yourself up about, well, I said I wasn't going to do this, and now I've done it again. And it also kind of raises this question about, well, what exactly is moderation? What are the rules? Does it mean, you know, does moderation mean only drinking once a week or twice a week, or does it mean only drinking one or two drinks per night rather than five or six? Now, how do you even define it? I mean, for me, it was always don't drink during the week. Weekends are fine. All bets are off. Go crazy at the weekends, but just don't drink during the week. What did it mean for you?
I think that rings true with me very much as well. I think for me, it's just when I tried to moderate, it was just noise, right? It was just noise in my head, and there were so many rules that I would try to make for myself. Now, as we kind of say in all the subjects we discuss, everybody's on their own path. Everybody's on their own journey. It's not for me to sit here and say, you can't moderate or you must give up alcohol for this period of time, because that's not what we're about. We openly discuss these topics, and people are different, right? But for me, yeah, it was just about the noise. It was making up those rules for myself. I'll only drink on a Friday, Saturday, or I'll then it suddenly Thursday would creep in, and then Wednesday would creep in, and then in jobs would often have meetings in London on a Tuesday. Oh, well, you know what? I'm in London and the company are paying. So there would always, the thing is with making these rules, there's always the ability to just break them. And for me, removing that, I just had one simple decision to make, and that's
100%.
not to drink.
Yeah.
And suddenly, with that, that noise just disappeared, but absolutely not immediately. And on a number of attempted breaks from drinking, I'd always make those rules, and I'd always tend to break them. And people make those rules for whatever reason that's right for them. And if it works, great, fill your booze. But for me, it really was never an option
Yeah, I
until I,
think just having that, just making it a binary decision of am I going to drink, am I not, and taking away that what are the rules around it. Like you said, what are the rules that I'm setting for myself? Okay, you can do it on Saturday or Friday or whatever. Just by removing that and saying, well, it's a no. I'm going to commit to a break to a finite period of time, whether that's a week, a month, or wherever you are at the time, whatever you think you can manage, but just sticking that flag in the ground and going, right, okay, I'm not going to have that internal debate, because you're right, it's absolutely exhausting. And I think, we look at it from a neuroscience point of view, the brain can handle yes or no decisions much more easily than it can these kind of complex, what are the rules? It's just so much more clearer if you make that decision. But I think part of it as well that I've kind of learned since I've been alcohol free that I just couldn't wrap my head around when I was drinking is when you're made that decision that you're not going to drink, taking the break is what really makes the big difference. And you mentioned it there a moment ago. If you take a break and you have that period, let's say call it a month, you get to sort of see what it's like when you're not drinking. And for a lot of people, and certainly this was my case, I'd never taken a break since I was 18. Once I started, I hadn't taken more than a week off. And then you start, so when you've had that break, you don't necessarily need to moderate as much, because the desire to drink starts to kind of diminish, because you've experienced all that, you know how fantastic you feel and how much energy you've got and how much clarity you've got and all those things that go with with being alcohol free. Once you've seen behind the curtain a bit, I mentioned it on the first episode, this idea of the toothpaste sat of the tube. Once you've learned it, you can't really see it the same again, and that starts to diminish the desire to drink. And our coach that we learn, that we taught with Andy Ramage, talks about this idea that you don't have to moderate something that you don't have any desire to do. And a good example probably is smoking. I used to smoke when I was in my 20s, but I don't now. I don't have to moderate smoking because I don't give a shit about smoking. It doesn't interest me. And for a lot of the people that I work with, if they don't smoke, I use that as a comparison. Do you have to moderate smoking? Do you have to tell yourself I'm only going to smoke at the weekends? I'm like, no, I don't give a shit about smoking. It doesn't interest me. It's like, well, that's what we want to try and get to with alcohol. They could smoke if they wanted. If they wanted to wanted to go out and have a cigarette, they could have a cigarette. But they don't want it. There's no desire to do it. And that's the difference, I think, is desire. It's all about desire.
I think, yeah, I agree where you're coming from, and I think it's there's almost that. Do we make those rules because the age-old discussion that alcohol is the only drug that we have to justify not taking?
Love that.
So if we go out, if I was partial to smoking a bit of crack, I decided to stop doing that, I wouldn't have anyone trying to tell me that it was okay to do on a Tuesday, or anyone questioning the fact that I decided to stop. So it's there. With that, then goes the conversation that why would you, like you're saying there, why would you not want to take that sort of prolonged period of time to actually experience what it's like to socialize alcohol free, or to go to an event alcohol free? Because often, I think one of the sticking points for people when they say they want to moderate versus take a break, if they're questioning their drinking, if they're questioning their relationship with alcohol, then for me, the best option is to have that break and get the opportunity to see what what life is like without it, for whatever period of time that seems. We've discussed in the past, for me, that's sort of 60 to 90 days is kind of the tipping point that worked for me. But equally, I think there's that feeling of saying, well, you know what, I still want to socialize with alcohol. But until you've taken that break, you won't actually understand how it feels to get through that barrier of socializing without alcohol. So, or that feeling of, actually, do I really need to stop? Because do I fit into the the stereotype of having a problem with drinking, and we discussed this previously as well. There's you don't need to have a problem. If it's something you're questioning, then why not take that opportunity to see what it's like, and removing it entirely gives you that real opportunity to see where it can take you.
Most of the people that seek you out for coaching, what do they ask for? Do they come to you saying, right, Steve, I've seen you on LinkedIn, really love your stuff, I want to go alcohol free, or is it something else? What do you hear the most?
Yeah, I get a real mix, if I'm honest with you, but I'd say it's probably an equal mix. But it's always that feeling of, 90 days is a long time, and it's explaining, and it's kind of setting the goalposts out, and actually understanding that it's not about looking at 90 days. It's not about looking at that long period of time, because that can, like we said before, can sound too big and too scary. But I do get my fair share. I want to get my drinking under control, and actually I
was kind of teeing you up a little bit there with a loaded question, because I get that a lot as well. I say the majority of people that I speak to use the word control. Control is what people want. I find very few people want to go alcohol free, but the outcome after that break, I would say, tends to be a bit more 60-40, in terms of 60% of people do start to reintegrate alcohol to some level, and probably 40% carry on and go, I love this, I'm staying alcohol free. But the ones who bring it back in have got control back, because they've had that prolonged, because I coach a 60-day break, and once people have done that, again, they've seen what it's like. It's not just like doing dry January where you're white knuckling it and you're hiding yourself away. So you can't really do that in 60 days. That's part of the reason why I do 2 months, is so that people have to go out and socialize. They have to live their life normally, and they have to find kind of coping mechanisms without alcohol. And once they've gone through that barrier, then they tend to sort of think, yeah, I could go out and have a drink if I wanted, and maybe I will at a wedding, or maybe I will do it at a Christmas party or whatever, but I just don't. Again, we're sort of saying about a minute ago, the desire starts to diminish. And when you diminish the desire, the need for moderation isn't really there anymore, because you're not resisting something. There's not that sense of depriving yourself of something that you're putting on a pedestal. And so, I think moderation is possible, but personally, and through my own experience, I believe it's only possible by having a period off alcohol first. I don't think you can get to a situation where you just cut down and you're quite happy to do that. Well, certainly I couldn't, because, and a lot of people I work with can't either, because you don't go and see a coach about alcohol unless you think you're drinking too much. If you're drinking, I don't know, half a bottle of wine a week, then it's not really a big deal. But if you're drinking 20 units a week, north of that, 3 or 4 bottles of wine a week, then moderation is probably going to be quite miserable, because you're going to feel like you're depriving yourself.
Yeah, I think, and we often hear that phrase, and this is that might tip it that way as well. Is that everything in moderation? And something that really, really gets my goat is actually,
I hate that.
And it's
I hate that saying. It's bollocks.
It's
absolute bollocks.
You're so right, and it's
poison in moderation.
Exactly, and the one thing that old wives' tale that, and these things stick with people, because they look for the truth behind things. So they'll go, oh yeah, well, I've heard that a glass of red wine is good for your heart. And that's, I've read that a glass, and my old grandma, she drank a glass of red wine every day and lived to 100.
40 fags.
But these are the exceptions. And actually, we're not here to preach. Ultimately, what I want to get best from my clients when I coach them is the fact that if alcohol's a problem for you, then it's a problem for you, and it's a problem. Whether that's a glass of wine, if a glass of wine a week is causing you a problem, then that's fine. That's a problem for you, and we can work with that. Equally, to the other end of the scale, but when we're just talking there about a glass of wine being good for your heart, it's clearly not. We know that. It's the grapes that are good for you. It's nothing to do with the alcohol.
Eat the grapes, for Christ's sake.
To stick with the grapes and have a handful of grapes from time to time. But there is that discussion that goes around that actually alcohol is okay for you in moderation. But as we know, the World Health Organization state there is no safe level of alcohol consumption. But equally, that's not to scare. That's not to scare people off. There's no safe level of skydiving, but you know what? People do it, and it's your choice. So it's entirely up to you what choice you want to make. I believe those statistics and that information should be made known so that we can all make our own choices.
That's the key point, I think. I agree with you. You're absolutely right in what you say, but, and I'm putting a big but in here. I something like alcohol, in the same way as cigarettes, it has to be an informed decision that people make, and people are making an informed decision when they buy a packet of 20 fags, right? Because it's right there on the packaging what it's going to do to you. That's not the case with alcohol, and people are not informed about the facts about alcohol. And you said about the World Health Organization there, and most people have very little awareness of the dangers of alcohol, particularly around cancer. Perhaps we talk about that on another episode because it gets quite deep when you start talking about cancer. But the reality is that people they do not have the information. One in four people believe that there are no health downsides to alcohol whatsoever. And to be quite honest, as soon as I saw that stat, I immediately thought of my dad, because it tends to be the older generation. It's like you're saying there about, the grapes and resveratrol and all that. And it's like somebody call 1970 because they want their science back. We've moved on. We know things that science moves forward, right? It doesn't stay the same. And the whole issue around public awareness around alcohol, it's people have a staggering lack of awareness around alcohol, but that's going to change because you've probably seen the NHS 10-year plan that they announced last week, and part of that is going to have alcohol labelling coming in at some point. I don't know when that's going to be. It's coming in Ireland next year.
Yeah,
that's going to really change the landscape for a lot of people. I think when they see it on a beer bottle, alcohol can cause cancer. I think people are going to start to think about that a lot more.
I would totally agree. I would totally agree with you. But for you, I mean, when you're coaching, what other blockers come up for you where people more hesitant to say that they want to take a more prolonged break rather than moderation? For me,
I'll be honest, people don't generally come and say they want to take a break. They come and say they want to get control back. And they want to be able to have like I say, very few people come along and say, I want to go alcohol free. What some do, who are very motivated to do it because they know I'm alcohol free. But most people are a bit like, yeah, I just need to get it back under control, but I don't want to be able to stop forever. So the break is how you do that, because it's creating that data point where, you can see how much better you feel after you've taken a prolonged break. But then to bat that back, people will challenge me on, well, I've taken a break before. I've done dry January. It was pretty miserable. I just was white knuckling it. And that's where the coaching piece is so different. One of the things that I've learned over the last year since I've been coaching is just how important not just strategy, but accountability is. People need somebody to kind of not hold their hand, but, just tell them that you're doing the right thing. You've got this. You can absolutely do this. But also being accountable for somebody to what they're doing rather than them just doing it on their own in their own head. And that makes all the difference. And the other thing I think that's really important that makes a huge difference is approaching it with a curious mind. Not going into it as, oh, this is going to be shit. I'm not going to go out for a month. I'm going to lock myself away. But actually thinking, I wonder what this could be like. I wonder how better I'm going to sleep. I wonder how much better I'm going to feel. And going into it genuinely curious about what could happen rather than going into it with the mindset of, I know this is going to be shit. I'm going to hate it. I'm not going to like it. And that's what makes the difference. And that's where doing it with somebody else, with a coach or a friend who's done it before, that's what makes the huge difference. I think. I don't know if it's that, have you found it?
I think it's exactly that. I think it's the really taking the opportunity to look at, you are not giving something up.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's a case of what you stand to gain. And I think having the opportunity to look at that through that period of time, something I've sometimes asked some of my clients to do is actually take a photo of themselves every week, just for their own personal usage, and not necessarily to to share with anybody or anything else, but just to see those changes that happen. And you're never going to get all that data if you're deciding that maybe I'll just have a drink on a Wednesday, or maybe I've got this event, that event coming up, or anything else. There's never a right time, right? You just, once you get to that point that you want to make that decision, then the time to make that decision is now.
Yeah, totally.
And whether that, I don't, if you want some time, then make it tomorrow morning. Okay. But don't make it next Tuesday, because something will come up. Something will drop in. And there's always going to be that wedding. There's always going to be that curveball from work. There's always going to be something. And once you make that make that decision to take that break, for me, going back to the beginning of the conversation, for me, removing all that noise, removing all those rules, removing all that what if that, what if this, and just going back to that one single decision: I'm not drinking today, and I'm going to see where this takes me, opens up so many more doors, and you see it with clarity.
Exactly. I mean, understanding how alcohol is affecting your brain in terms of decision making also is really important in this, because we've evolved to where we are as a species because we are incredibly efficient storing energy. We store energy as fat. Our brains are made to find the path of least resistance, and our subconscious works in a way that it will always go to the situation that it feels safe with, that it understands. Annie Grace talks a lot about this in this naked mind, in that even if you're doing something that's harming yourself, your brain will still go towards that because it knows that it can control that space. It knows what to expect. Our bodies always function best when they know what's going to happen, when there's consistency. It's like the same reason why if you exercise at the same time every day, you're going to get a much better result, because your body knows how to prepare for that when things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And even if you're drinking regularly, it's what your brain knows. So it will, your subconscious will tell you to carry on drinking. So when you sort of think, well, I've got this thing coming up, I'll put it off and I'll do it in a week's time. That is your subconscious telling you, like, well, hang on a minute, don't stop the drinking, because we know where we are with that. What we don't know is what could happen if you don't drink. And again, our subconscious is very primitive. It's not the rational part of our brain. It's not our conscious, it's our subconscious. So it works on what it knows. It gravitates towards what it knows. Because also, again, like I said a minute ago, that's the path of least resistance. So it will always tell it, oh yeah, it's not a good idea to not drink, because we don't really know where we are with that. So, trying to understand what the landscape is in terms of your neuroscience is really important. I think another point that kind of attaches to that as well is, this idea of not having an off switch. This was definitely true for me, and I think it's true for a lot of people. If you go to the pub and say, I'm just going to have one drink tonight, and then I'm going to go home, it never happens, because alcohol depresses the functioning of your prefrontal cortex. And that's the part of the brain that's responsible for, judgment, reasoning, impulsive behavior, risk aversion. So that part of your brain is offline as soon as you've had a pint. So straight away, like, yeah, why not? I'm staying out all night. Brilliant.
Yeah.
But and then the next day you're beating yourself up because you've got no willpower, and why didn't you do what you said you would do? But the landscape has changed as soon as alcohol's hit your brain.
Totally. You're trying to get back to that point straight away. You're trying always. That feeling lasts you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You're always trying to chase that feeling again, right?
Completely.
You can even picture it before, and your brain, that decision making part, is making that decision before you even get to the pub, right? It sees the vision of that cold pint with the condensation running down it, and thinks, oh great, this is what my night's going to turn into, and this is how it's going to be fantastic. I'm going to go and have that lovely well-deserved drink after work, or I'm down the pub. But that lasts such a short period of time before you're right. I could never just have one. That's me. It couldn't.
But most people can't.
No, absolutely. And you get to that stage where that's where it's so, it's so difficult to just have one. There are people out there that can, and I get it. And
yeah, my wife's one.
I'm super jealous of those people, but I know that's not me.
But everyone, everyone has got a different belief system around alcohol, and it's because everyone has a different upbringing, and it's not just to do with your parents, but it's all your influences, everything you see around you. We're all unique because we've had all different things poured into us, over as we've grown up, and our outlook on things is different. And just because one person can take it or leave it with alcohol, it doesn't mean that everybody else can. The vast majority of people don't have an off switch because of what it does to prefrontal cortex.
Mm, mm. I mean, I know now, over 4 years alcohol free, that I couldn't just go back and have one. I know
No.
that myself. But also, for me, it's different now, though, right? I never ask myself that question anymore. I now look at how much data I've got and how much I'd be giving up just for the cost of that one pint,
Let me
and
ask you a question. Let me
go
ask
on,
you a question. I'd love to
fire
hear.
away.
So, okay, I ask this all the time, and I'm sure you do. So do you ever have days where you think, oh, I'd really love a pint? I won't, because I'd lose all of this great shit that I've got. But do you ever still think, yeah, I'd still really love a pint though? That'd be nice. Do you ever think that?
No,
Me neither.
genuinely, 100%. No. When you say, but the reason I say wholeheartedly no to that now is because you said, do you have days when you think that? Do I have seconds when I think that? Yes. Do I occasionally walk past? They are so few and far between. But do I occasionally walk past a beer garden on a sunny afternoon and see a pint and think, oh, you know what? I don't think I actually get this feeling of, oh, do I really want one? No. It's almost like I could have one, but I don't want to do it. But there's definitely that something there, but it's so faint now that I just dismiss it. And it's like a little bubble of thought that just goes so quickly. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that. And no, I do you?
No, I think I'm in the same place as you. I don't. Someone asked me this recently, and I was a bit flummoxed to what the answer was, because it was someone I was coaching, and I wanted to kind of be like, "Yeah, no, never." But I actually don't think I did. I don't think I do. I don't. I'm trying to work out when the point was where it completely went. I think at the beginning, when I'd made the firm decision that that was it, I was not, that was doing this full time. I think there was a bit of a period where I was looking at it in terms of, this is such a great deal. Forget about the drinking, because you've just got so much that you're gaining here. And as that played out and that became truth, I think the genuine desire did go. The only time, in fact, no, that I don't. I generally don't have any desire to drink it anymore. The only times where I would say I miss it, and it's not in the sense of the word miss that you probably think it is at weddings. And the only reason I say that is because weddings are the only things that you have to go to for 9 or 10 hours. You're obliged to be there, and you cannot leave. And that's the one time where just getting obliterated and switching off. But on the flip side, if you're there for 10 hours and everyone else is hammered, which they are at weddings, and people get really annoying, you can't just go, you know what, I think I'm done now, I'm going to leave. You can't. You're there for 10 hours, and they're pretty long. So that's the only time I genuinely think, oh, maybe I wish I was drinking at a wedding, purely just so that I was just be completely anesthetized with everybody else. But that's not. But in terms of something I miss from an enjoyment point of view, then yeah, hell no.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, well, it's a huge subject, and I think it's one that probably will never necessarily be answered in full. But I think, with all these things, it's coming back to, you have to do what's right for you. And for me, as I said, the tipping point for me was 90 days. And then once you hit that 90 days, I think you've got enough data, you've got enough experience, you've got enough under your belt to make sure that you can make a really informed decision. And that's, for me, why moderation doesn't fit into the equation for me, and didn't. And every time I tried to moderate, I failed.
I think something that also that sort of struck me about moderation, the longer time went on since I stopped drinking, was when you're moderating, you're putting so much emphasis on the periods when you can drink. Let's say it's a Saturday, for argument's sake. And that means you're naturally you're downgrading the rest of the time. So
Yeah.
the weekends become really special because you can, do this one thing that you put on a pedestal, but then the rest of the week is downgraded. And I kind of want to enjoy every day that I'm here equally. I don't just want to be writing off 5 days because I can't have a drink during the week. And when you take alcohol out of the mix, everything is raised to the same level,
Yeah.
and it doesn't, one thing we've not spoken about today is the whole idea around time, the amount of time you get back when you're not drinking, not just the actual drinking itself, but the mental space that's spent on what we just talked about. There's that kind of mental gymnastics. And then I always kind of thought that if I stopped drinking, I'd have loads of time to do whatever I wanted. Because when I was drinking, I was just spending a lot of time on the couch watching TV. But actually now I've cut drinking out, I actually Actually, the opposite is true. I actually find I don't have any time because I'm so busy because I've got so many
Yeah.
things that I want to do and I've got energy to do. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to go and do that. And I'm going to do this. And I'm doing this with you right now. And I'm coaching people and all of these things that I've got so much drive and motivation to do. Whereas, before I was just, on the couch with a hangover, just watching TV or playing video games. And you do get so much time back, but you fill it with stuff that's really makes you feel good that you want to do.
I think there is an entire episode out there on the time you get back from taking a break or from taking alcohol out your life. For me, it was the biggest gift I got. The biggest, without a doubt. Time, it's just, yeah, like you say, you feel busy because you've got all that extra time. And at first, you go, what the hell am I going to do with all this time?
That's a good one.
know?
That's a good one. We need to talk about that in the future.
Yeah,
How you feel
absolutely.
that time is quite hard at first,
Yeah.
but you do, you do find a new path, and it's so much more. Like I say, we would not be doing this together now. We wouldn't be coaching. We wouldn't, obviously alcohol's played a big part in that, but we wouldn't be doing this. You find new stuff to do, and it's
Yeah,
brilliant.
absolutely.
Lights you up.
Yeah, it's been a great subject, and like I say, I'm not sure it's one we're ever gonna get the full answers to, but I genuinely believe that it's a you do you. And for me, my advice is that 60 to 90-day break gives you that real opportunity to take it on board. But yeah, so we're probably just about done with another episode. So I just wanted to remind everybody, James, where can people find you if they want to reach out for any coaching with you?
Well, I post on LinkedIn every day, or every weekday, Monday to Friday. Take a bit of a breather at the weekends. It's James Lloyd on LinkedIn. I've also got a website, and I've got a weekly newsletter if people want to hear more. My website is alcoholfreecoach.com. And yeah, I'm always up for just chit chatting with people. If anyone wants to get together for just have a DM or have a virtual coffee, have a Zoom call, chat about drinking. Like I say, there's absolutely no judgment from either one of us. We're doing this because we want to help people and spread the word about an alcohol-free lifestyle. So if you want to talk about this and you're having thoughts of perhaps taking a break or going alcohol-free, sober curious, let's have a chat. All starts with a conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, great to hear. And equally, if you want to reach out to myself, my email address is www.soberilliant.com, and you can also reach me on Instagram at sober.illiant. And yeah, we really are so grateful that you've joined us on the next episode of the Alcohol-Free Revolution. And hopefully, if you are this far down the line and you've been listening to this for so long, that we'd love you to, if you like us, follow us, drop us a 5-star review. That can always help. Obviously, if you think we are worthy of a 5-star review, then that would be really helpful to help us get up through those ratings so we can continue to do this.
Spread the word.
And spread the word. And we would love to keep going, and we will keep going. And we look forward to joining you next week on our next episode. And yeah, anything you want to say before we go, James?
No, I think the only thing I'd say is if anyone's got any particular topics they want us to discuss, then you can interact with us. Like I say, Steve's on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. Just get involved. Tell us your thoughts, and we'll try and adapt the show to what people want to hear.
Fantastic. Well, it's been great catching up with you. Have a great week. Hope you sort out the fine that you got, and I hope your week turns out better going forward. But yeah, look forward to catching up next week, and have a great week.
Good stuff. Thanks, mate. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.